Elena Whitmore stood at her window on the morning of her wedding, watching the gray light spread slowly over the garden below. She had not slept. Her hands, folded tightly in her lap, felt cold despite the warmth of the room. In a few hours, she would become the wife of a man she had never met, a man the whole county called the Cold Duke. Her father had told her plainly, 3 weeks earlier, that there was no other way. Their family's business had collapsed after 2 failed harvests and a series of bad debts. The Whitmore name, once respected, now brought only pity or scorn. Duke Adrian Blackwood had offered to settle every debt in exchange for one thing, a bride from their family. Elena's older sister was already engaged, so the arrangement fell to her. She did not argue. She had watched her mother grow thin with worry, watched her father's hands shake as he signed papers he did not want to sign. If marrying a stranger could end that suffering, she would do it. But she could not stop the fear that curled in her chest whenever she thought of the man waiting for her at the altar. The stories about Adrian Blackwood were not kind. Servants who left his household spoke of a man who never smiled, who ate his meals in silence, who walked through his own halls like a ghost. Worse, there were whispers about his first wife, a woman named Cecilia, who had died 3 years ago under circumstances no one fully explained. Some said illness. Others, in hushed voices, said something darker. Elena had heard both versions, and neither comforted her. By mid-morning, she was dressed in a pale blue gown, her mother's old pearls at her throat, and led to the carriage that would take her to Blackwood Manor. Her mother held her hand the entire ride, saying little, though her eyes were full of things she could not say aloud. When they arrived, the manor loomed above them, tall and gray, its windows like watching eyes. The ceremony itself was small and quiet, held in the manor's private chapel. Only a handful of guests attended, mostly members of the Duke's household and a few distant relatives. Elena walked down the short aisle with her father, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. At the altar stood Adrian Blackwood. He was younger than she had expected, though his face carried none of the softness of youth. His dark hair was neatly combed, his black coat sharp and precise, and his gray eyes held no warmth at all. He did not smile when she approached. He did not reach for her hand until the priest instructed him to. His grip was firm but distant, as though he were shaking hands with a stranger at a business meeting rather than marrying a woman for life. Throughout the ceremony, Elena felt the weight of his silence more than anything else. He answered the priest's questions in a low, steady voice, his expression never changing. When it came time for him to say his vows, he spoke them clearly, without hesitation, but also without any feeling she could name. She began to wonder if the rumors were true after all, if this man truly felt nothing. What struck her more than his coldness, though, was the way his household staff watched her. An older housekeeper near the back of the chapel dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. A young maid clasped her hands together as if praying. Even the Duke's steward, a tall man with graying hair, watched Elena with an expression she could not quite understand. Something between relief and quiet hope. It was as if her presence meant something to them beyond a simple wedding. After the ceremony, there was a brief dinner attended by close relatives and senior members of the household staff. Adrian sat beside her, but he spoke only when necessary, mostly short replies to questions from his aunt, an elderly woman who seemed to be the only relative who dared speak to him at all. Elena picked at her food, her stomach too tight with nerves to eat properly. She caught Adrian glancing at her once or twice, but each time he looked away quickly, as though he did not want to be caught. When dinner ended, a servant led Elena to her new chambers to prepare for the night. Her hands trembled as she changed out of her wedding gown into a simple white robe. She sat at the edge of the large bed, staring at the door, waiting for whatever would come next. She thought of every warning she had ever heard about him. She thought of Cecilia, the first wife, and wondered what had truly happened to her. The door opened, and Adrian stepped inside. He had changed out of his formal coat into a simpler dark jacket, though his expression remained just as unreadable as before. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Elena kept her eyes lowered, unsure of what was expected of her, bracing herself for coldness, or perhaps something worse. Instead, Adrian walked to the chair near the window and sat down, keeping a respectful distance between them. He folded his hands together and looked at her directly for the first time all day. "I know what they say about me," he said quietly, "and I know what you must be thinking right now." Elena did not answer. She was too surprised that he had spoken at all, let alone in such a low, careful tone. "I did not choose you at random," he continued, "and I did not marry you only to settle your father's debts, though that is what everyone believes, including your own family." Elena finally looked up at him, her curiosity overtaking her fear. "Then why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Adrian was quiet for a moment, as though gathering the courage to speak. "Years ago, before you were born, before I was even a grown man, my younger sister Margaret fell gravely ill. The physicians said there was little hope. My family had already begun preparing for the worst." He paused, his gray eyes distant, as if looking into the past. "Your mother was the one who saved her." Elena's breath caught. "My mother?" She was young then, barely older than you are now, working as an assistant to the town healer. She stayed by Margaret's side for 11 days without rest, using remedies no one else dared try. She risked her own health to do it. When my sister recovered, your mother refused any payment. She said it was simply the right thing to do. Adrian's voice grew softer. "My family never forgot that. My father always said we owed the Whitmore family a debt of honor, one we could never fully repay." Elena felt tears gathering in her eyes, though she was not sure if they came from grief for her mother, who had passed 2 years earlier, or from the shock of learning this hidden piece of her family's history. "She never told us," she whispered. "She likely did not think it was important enough to mention," Adrian said, "but I never forgot it. When I learned of your family's troubles, and that your father intended to arrange a marriage to settle his debts, I saw a chance to finally repay what my family owed, quietly, without drawing attention to the reason behind it." Elena studied him carefully, trying to understand. "So this marriage is only about a debt from long ago?" Adrian shook his head slowly. "No, that is only part of it." He looked down at his hands before continuing. "After Cecilia died, I closed myself off from everyone. I stopped trusting people, stopped believing that kindness could survive in this world without being crushed by it. I built walls around myself so thick that even my own staff learned not to speak to me unless necessary." His voice grew heavier as he spoke, though he kept it steady. "Cecilia's death was not an accident, as most people believe. She was betrayed by someone close to her, someone she trusted completely, and it cost her everything. I was left with guilt I could not escape, believing I had failed to protect her." He met Elena's eyes again. "When I heard about you, about how you managed your family's household through their collapse, how you cared for your ill mother in her final months, how you never once complained despite everything falling apart around you, I began to believe that perhaps gentleness could survive hardship without being destroyed by it." Elena's heart ached at his words, though she tried to steady her voice. "You watched me? Before all this?" "I asked questions," Adrian admitted. "I wanted to know who I was truly marrying, not just the family name attached to a debt. What I learned made me believe you were someone whose strength was quiet, but real. Not loud, not forced, simply honest." He paused. "I am not asking you to love me, Elena. I understand that is not something that can be forced or rushed. But I am asking for a chance to be honest with you, starting tonight, instead of hiding behind the coldness everyone expects from me." Elena sat in silence for a long moment, absorbing everything he had said. The Duke she had feared, the man everyone called heartless, was sitting before her now with more vulnerability than she had ever expected to see. She thought of her mother, of the kindness she had shown without asking for anything in return, and how that same kindness had somehow led her here, to this room, to this unexpected truth. "Why tell me this now?" she asked softly. "You could have kept it hidden. I would never have known." "Because you deserve to understand why you are here," Adrian said. "Not as a payment for debt, not as a stranger forced into my life, but as someone whose family changed mine in a way I never forgot. I did not want our marriage to begin with silence and half-truths, even if silence is what I am most comfortable with." Elena felt something shift inside her chest, a loosening of the fear she had carried all day. She still knew almost nothing about this man, about his habits, his moods, his true nature beyond this one conversation. But she recognized honesty when she heard it, and after a lifetime of watching her family hide their struggles behind polite smiles, she valued honesty more than anything else. "I am grateful you told me," she said finally. "I was prepared for someone cold and distant, someone I would have to endure rather than know. I did not expect this." A faint, almost invisible softness crossed Adrian's face, the closest thing to a smile Elena had seen from him all day. "I cannot promise I will be an easy husband," he said. "The habits of 3 years of silence do not disappear in one night. But I promise I will not lie to you, and I will not hide behind coldness simply because it is easier." Elena nodded slowly, feeling, for the first time since her father had told her of this marriage, a small flicker of hope rather than dread. "Then perhaps we can learn each other honestly," she said. "Not as strangers bound by debt, but as two people willing to try." Adrian rose from his chair and walked closer, stopping a respectful distance away. He extended his hand, not in the formal, distant way he had at the altar, but with something gentler in his eyes. "Thank you for listening," he said. "And for not running from the truth, even though you had every right to." Elena took his hand, and this time, his grip felt different, less like a stranger's formality, and more like a quiet promise. "We both lost people who shaped who we are," she said. "Perhaps that is something we can understand in each other." Outside, the night had grown fully dark, the manor quiet except for the distant sound of wind against the windows. Inside the chamber, two people who had begun the day as strangers forced together by circumstance now sat together in a new kind of silence, one built not on fear or coldness, but on the fragile beginning of trust. Elena did not know what the following months would bring, whether the Duke's guarded heart would truly open, or whether the shadows of his past would resurface to test them both. But as she looked at him now, no longer seeing the cold Duke of rumor and whisper, but a man carrying grief and honor in equal measure, she felt something she had not expected to feel on this day at all. Hope. And for the first time since her father had told her of this marriage, Elena allowed herself to believe that perhaps, out of debt and duty and unexpected truth, something real might still be built between them.